A girl entered school dressed head to toe in luxury designer brands, instantly attracting the eyes of many classmates. It was revealed that she came from a rich family and received a daily allowance of $300,000. On social media, she had millions of followers, and her daily outfits were often imitated by other students. The main character, Hyan, walked into the classroom and was warmly welcomed by her peers. Yet she answered with a cold, distant attitude. She noticed another girl sitting at her desk. The girl quickly realized her mistake and rushed to get up, but Hyan stopped her. Reluctantly, the girl wiped the desk before leaving. Behind the scenes, this girl had long been jealous of Hyan. Out of envy, she spread false rumors about her. Even though Hyan had heard plenty of those stories, she chose to ignore them. Then, through a fan's private message, Hyan found out that someone was using her photos to operate a fake account on social media, which had already gained a large following. Coincidentally, that same girl was boasting to classmates that she had used Hyan's photos to land herself a handsome boyfriend. But soon after, she was bombarded with countless messages from netizens criticizing her. It turned out Hyan had just publicly clarified that the account was fake and not hers. At that moment, Hyan happened to pass by. The jealous girl, now furious, stopped her and angrily demanded why she would expose her like that. Hyan replied briefly, speaking on behalf of her fans, and turned to leave. But the girl, unwilling to let it go, grabbed Hyan's hand in rage, causing Hyan's phone to fall and shatter on the ground. This time, Hyan was truly enraged. She seized the other girl's phone and smashed it on the floor without hesitation. Then she calmly picked up her own broken phone and walked away without looking back. Meanwhile, across campus, we are introduced to the male lead, Unk. He is also very popular and serves as the president of the school's broadcasting club. Unk is a perfectionist, demanding everything be done flawlessly and to the highest standard. With his good looks and serious personality, he has caught the attention of many girls. Some even tried to join the club just to be close to him. Not long ago, one of the female anchors, So Hyan, confessed her feelings to Unk, but he coldly rejected her and quickly expelled her from the club. Now that So Hyan was gone, the club urgently needed a replacement. At that moment, a student recommended Hyan for the role, mainly because of her massive online following and strong presence, making her an ideal candidate. So Unk personally approached Hyan and invited her to join the team. One day, a girl had fallen asleep on the bus when a boy quietly came over to close the window. Just then, she suddenly woke up, startled, leaning back in fear. Their eyes met briefly. It turned out the boy, Unk, had called out to her several times but got no answer, so he had no choice but to close the window himself. Shortly after, Hyan reopened the window, making the tension between them obvious. It turned out that the day before, Unk had invited Hyan to join the school broadcasting club, but she had firmly rejected him. Feeling insulted by her attitude, Unk mocked her sarcastically. Hyan, unwilling to back down, fired back with sharp words of her own. Their encounter ended unpleasantly. The next day, Hyan rested under a tree, listening to the school broadcast. Suddenly, she heard a story that seemed to reflect her own past experiences. When she arrived for the interview, Unk, remembering her refusal, curtly told her the interviews were already finished. But another club member corrected him, saying there was still time left. Reluctantly, Unk agreed to conduct the interview, and with Hyan's impressive skills, she passed easily. Afterward, Hyan asked who had submitted the story she heard. Unk said it was anonymous and had to remain confidential. On her first official day in the club, Hyan arrived late. For Unk, who valued strictness and punctuality, this was unacceptable. He told her to leave the club immediately. But Hyan, determined to find out who was behind the broadcast story, swallowed her pride and sincerely apologized, promising never to be late again. Unk agreed to let her stay but punished her by making her responsible for cleaning duties. A nearby student wondered why Hyan would choose to stay in the broadcasting club, where she had to do chores, when she could easily join another club where she wouldn't need to lift a finger. Hyan, who had never in her life done cleaning before, put on some music and absent-mindedly traced circles on the floor while using the mop. Just then, Unk walked inside, and Hyan accidentally splashed water onto his shoes. With a sigh of resignation, he let it go. That evening, on her way home, Hyan unexpectedly ran into her former best friend, So Hyan. So Hyan called out to her, saying she could reveal who had actually submitted the story to the broadcast. But Hang coldly told her to stay out of her business and to act like they didn't know each other if they happened to meet again. Once the closest of friends, now reduced to pretending they were strangers. What had come between them? Hang was determined to dig out the truth behind the story that had aired on the school broadcast. So she went to Unk, pretending she wanted to learn how the club functioned, and asked for the login details. Unk told her he would consider it depending on how well she performed. In an effort to earn his trust, Hang began arriving early every day to clean the broadcasting room. Seeing her persistent effort, Unk started to develop a softer attitude toward her. They even spent moments together taking photos with his camera. But the good atmosphere didn't last long. One day, Unk discovered that Hang hadn't actually been doing the cleaning herself. Instead, she had been secretly paying her classmates to handle it for her. Meanwhile, the girl who had once stolen Harang's photos and whom Hang had exposed in front of everyone had stopped coming to school, too ashamed to show her face. Soon after, Hang received a message from an anonymous sender online. Someone had shared sensitive and potentially damaging information about her. Shortly after, that same girl released a public statement online, claiming that she was not the one who had stolen Harang's photos. She insisted that a year earlier, Hang had borrowed her account and that everything had been orchestrated by Hang from the start. On the surface, Hang didn't seem to take these accusations seriously. But when she reached the final line of the message, a name came to mind, one that filled her with dread. Then came another school broadcast, again featuring a story that seemed to reflect Harang's past. This time, Hang was furious. She stormed into the broadcasting room and cut the broadcast off in the middle of transmission. The entire room was left shocked at her dramatic interruption. Yunu was stunned, and later he got scolded by a teacher for the disruption. Hang confronted Zhu Han directly. "Were you the one who sent in that story?" So Hyan replied calmly, "Apologize first. Because of what you just did, everyone in the department is being punished." Hang gave in and apologized to the other students. Then she turned back to So Hyan and demanded, "Now will you tell me?" Just at that moment, Un stepped in and cut them off. Still bitter about being reprimanded by the teacher, he lashed out at Hang, saying some especially harsh and hurtful words. The next day, feeling guilty for her outburst, Hang went to apologize to Unk. But he was still angry and refused to forgive her. What began as a simple apology quickly escalated into yet another heated argument. Once more, the two parted on bad terms. That evening, Unk sat alone thinking about their fight. As he reflected, a sense of regret began to creep in. Out of curiosity about Hang, he looked her up online only to find her social media filled with sarcastic, mocking, and hurtful comments. For the first time, Un began to understand. Perhaps Hang's cold demeanor wasn't arrogance after all, it was her way of shielding herself. That night, while Hang was walking home alone, she suddenly became aware of faint footsteps trailing behind her. It felt as though someone was following. Fear set in, and she instinctively walked faster. "That scared me," she muttered, spinning around, only to find Unk. "I'm just heading home too," he replied awkwardly. It turned out they lived in the same apartment complex. Although they had just quarreled not long before, now they ended up walking home together, both feeling slightly uneasy. Unk deliberately slowed his pace to stay behind her. But Hang, unused to having someone at her back, asked him to walk ahead instead. As they approached their building, Un suddenly called out to her, "Don't you get tired of living like this every single day?" Hang froze, assuming he wanted to pick another fight. But Un continued, "I mean, with everything that's happened between us, all those stories. Didn't they hurt you?" Hang gave a faint smile. She said she didn't care. She had heard so many rumors about herself over time that she had become immune. That small exchange eased the tension between them. They reconciled, sitting down together to talk as if nothing had happened. Just then, Hang noticed a wad of gum stuck to the sole of her shoe. Unk reached for tissues to help, but Hang, being playful, used his cherished vinyl record to scrape it off, accidentally snapping it in half. The next day, Hang reported to the broadcasting room as usual. To her surprise, Un had checked the club's submission account. She logged into the system, finally able to begin searching for the original sender of the story, but there were no hints at all, no usernames, no contact details, nothing useful. Then she noticed that the account appeared to be linked to someone already on the friend list, So Hyan. Immediately, her mind flashed back to a story So Hyan had once read aloud. It mirrored her own experience almost word for word. Hang began to suspect So Hyan, though part of her resisted believing it. After all, she and So Hyan had once been unbelievably close. They had first met back in middle school, both arriving late to class, and they bonded instantly. Over time, they became inseparable. But later something happened, something that struck Hang deeply and created a rift between them. That same day after school, she and Unk went together to buy a new record. As they went their separate ways afterward, Unk received a message from his father, but he wasn't ready to go home just yet. Instead, he invited Hang to grab some food. They bought snacks and sat by the roadside, casually eating and talking beneath the night sky. The next morning, Hang overslept and missed school entirely. Sitting by the roadside scrolling on her phone, she suddenly received another message from the mysterious story submitter. The shock hit her like a wave. This anonymous person even knew her real identity. She remembered how So Hyan had once glanced at her phone screen. Could she have seen something important? At that very moment, So Han happened to walk past. The instant she saw Hang, she turned quickly to leave. But Hang called out after her, just as she used to in the past. "It was you, wasn't it?" "What do you mean?" So Hyan answered, trying to dodge. "Don't play dumb," Hang said, stepping closer. "It was you, right?" Memories from the past flooded her mind. The girl had once nearly fallen, but a hand reached out in time to catch her. That girl had been the younger Harang, and the one who caught her was So Hyan. From that moment, the two became inseparable. They even carried matching keychains as a symbol of their bond. But one day, a group of school bullies targeted Harang. After that incident, she changed completely. She began pushing So Hyan away, becoming distant, cold, and withdrawn. Confused and hurt, So Hyan eventually confronted her. But that confrontation only ended with them severing ties completely. Now, standing in the present, So Hyan found herself reflecting on those days, still unable to fully grasp what Hang had gone through. Just then, running into her again, she instinctively tried to avoid contact and turned to leave. But Hang called after her once more, demanding answers about the submission account. So Hyan acted puzzled and denied everything, saying she didn't know what Hang was talking about. Frustrated by the accusation, she walked away, angry. Later, So Hyan confided in on that because of her complicated history with Hang, she didn't want to handle broadcasting duties alongside her. So Han decided to step in himself and began training Hang personally on how to operate the broadcasting equipment. He was strict and insisted she memorize every detail, warning her there would even be tests. The moment Hang faced her test, she felt tempted to quit. But then Unache suddenly leaned in close. Her heart skipped wildly. What did he just say? She hadn't caught a single word, she was too stunned. Later on, exhausted from studying, Hang drifted off to sleep in the broadcasting room. When Un walked in and saw her resting beneath the bright sunlight, he quietly removed his school jacket and hung it over the window to block the glare, creating shade for her. Hang stirred awake and noticed what he had done. Her heart fluttered as Un turned away, and she quickly pretended she had just woken naturally. He handed her a practice test. After days of hard effort, Hang astonished even herself. She achieved a perfect score. That weekend, a friend invited her out for dinner. In a group photo, she noticed that So Hyan would also be there. Remembering their argument, she felt awkward and decided not to attend. Meanwhile, at the dinner, her friend explained to the others that Hang's parents were usually very busy. And she often had to eat alone. Unk overheard this. He quietly slipped away. In reality, he went to find Hang and asked her to go get sushi with him, pretending it was just because he had a craving. After all, when you like someone, any excuse is enough to spend time together. While they ate, Unk noticed a faint trace of lipstick smeared on Hang's hand. Without saying anything, he gently took her hand and wiped it clean with a tissue. Hang's heart skipped once more. Then Un spoke, "I've always suspected you joined the broadcast team for a reason. But if you're going through something, tell me. Okay?" Later that night, Just as they were about to part ways, Hang returned home only to discover a chilling message waiting from the mysterious sender. Her heart racing, she bolted back outside, chasing after Unaik. She caught up to him, grabbing his arm, but the words stuck in her throat, because deep down, perhaps everyone wants to appear perfect in front of the person they care for most. One morning, Hang's parents prepared a large table filled with food to celebrate her birthday. Her mother even baked a birthday cake for her, but Hang didn't seem happy. She quietly admitted that she never really liked those things, which left her mother clearly disappointed. On her way to school, Hang ran into So Hyan on the bus. Behind them, a few students whispered and gossiped about So Hyan. Unable to stand hearing such lies, Hang stood up and defended her, correcting their false assumptions. So Hyan overheard everything. Their eyes locked for just a moment, but neither said a word. Later at the student council meeting, someone openly mocked Hang, but she didn't hold back. With calm confidence, she fired back and silenced the entire room. Determined to prove her worth, she volunteered to host one of the main events at the upcoming school anniversary celebration. After the meeting, Unk told her to begin practicing by doing live broadcasts during lunch to build her hosting skills. During class, that same mysterious sender messaged Hong again. This time, they mocked her decision to host, accusing her of simply craving attention. The remark struck her hard. How could the sender know such a detail? Hang began to suspect the person had been at the meeting as well. She confronted them directly, but they pretended not to understand. When she pushed further, their replies grew hesitant, almost guilty. That afternoon, Hang went live for the very first time. As the broadcast drew near its conclusion, she tossed aside her prepared script and began speaking directly from the heart. Her words were raw and emotional. Both Unk and So Hyan were caught off guard, yet to their surprise, her honesty deeply moved their classmates. The room erupted into applause. Even the teachers praised her performance. Some even offered to contribute stories themselves. After school, Unk invited Hang to the broadcasting room to test the sound equipment. It was her first time using a soundboard, and she played around with it like a child discovering a new toy. Turning to him, she asked, "Why didn't you stop me from going off script today?" Unk, always known for sticking strictly to plans, simply replied that he agreed with everything she said. When testing was done, Un looked straight at Hang and said, "Thank you for being you." It sounded like an ordinary thank you, but the warmth in his voice carried the weight of something almost like a confession. Before leaving, he mentioned he had prepared a birthday gift for her. Reaching into his backpack, he handed it over. Hang unwrapped it to find a bottle of cologne. But the scent instantly triggered a painful memory. On a past birthday, someone had humiliated her, spraying her with cologne in front of others as a cruel joke. Her breathing became shallow, panic surged through her chest. She rushed to the window, pulling frantically for air, but it refused to open. Desperately, she tugged again and again. Just when she thought she might suffocate, the window finally gave way. At that moment, she heard Unk's voice calling her name. Slowly, Hang began to calm down. One day, while organizing files, Unk stumbled upon a video of Hang singing. Watching the silly yet adorable harangue in the clip, he couldn't help but smile knowingly. Early the next morning, with the school anniversary event fast approaching, Unk assigned everyone their tasks. A classmate suggested that Hong and Unk's relationship seemed to be growing closer. After the rehearsal, the group started discussing the day's progress, but old grievances resurfaced, sparking yet another argument. Frustrated, they split apart on bad terms. Later, some missing footage had to be res-hot on the rooftop. Hang decided to go with him. Noticing that she wasn't dressed warmly enough for the chilly evening, they ended up spending time together, taking photos, listening to music, chatting, and enjoying the cool breeze. Maybe happiness was really just this simple. On their way home afterward, Unk suddenly said, "If I live with you, I'm willing to be quiet, but you refuse to be." Hang blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Unk looked at her and confessed, "I like you, white fox." The unexpected confession left Hang completely stunned. The very next day, Unk was busy assigning tasks to the students when Hang arrived. But this time, he spoke to her with a stern face, serious tone, and an almost annoyed expression. Was this really the same person who had confessed to her the day before? Yet at lunch, he revealed his usual caring side. Hang couldn't hold back anymore and blurted out, "Is liking someone supposed to be exciting?" Unk replied calmly, "Liking someone also means accepting their flaws." In that moment, Hang finally understood. Unk was someone who could separate work and personal feelings completely. As night fell, the live broadcast was about to begin. Hang, now recognized as a popular online streamer, stepped onto the stage and was instantly greeted with enthusiastic cheers from the audience. As the live stream officially started, viewers eagerly pulled out their phones to watch. Hang began reading out audience submissions, adding her thoughts to each story, and her genuine responses earned her widespread praise. During an interactive segment, she began replying to live comments when a question suddenly appeared on the screen. "Do you have someone special?" A shocking accusation spread online. Hang was being exposed for allegedly bullying a classmate in the past. The festival's joyful atmosphere shattered instantly. So Hyan, sensing something was wrong, quickly told someone to cut the lights. Hang's chest tightened. She tried to leave, but before she could step off the stage, her knees buckled. She collapsed. Instead of helping, the audience raised their phones, recording everything. Suddenly, Unk appeared. He jumped onto the stage, yanked down a wooden divider to block Hang from the crowd's prying eyes, then grabbed her by the arm and rushed her out of the venue as quickly as possible. Outside, still trembling, Hang whispered, "I want to be alone." Unk stared at her, but eventually released her. On the way home, Hang scrolled through the endless flood of online comments. Every moment of the humiliation replayed in her head. She cried quietly. The next day, Hang didn't go to school. Whispers filled the halls. Her name was on everyone's lips. Hearing the rumors, her friends couldn't take it anymore and snapped in anger. In the chaos, someone's pen clattered to the floor. That's when Hang appeared. She walked past them as though nothing had happened. No eye contact, no words. She went straight to the broadcasting room. Moments later, her voice echoed across the school. Everyone froze. Hang was broadcasting again. Her friends exchanged quiet glances of relief, but a voice nearby muttered, "She's shameless." Z clenched her fists in rage, barely stopping herself from swinging. After the broadcast, the students gathered. Unk was giving out cleanup tasks when Hang said, "I'll take care of cleaning the auditorium." Alone. He looked at her for a moment, then gave a small nod. But Hang hadn't been late because she overslept. She had gone to meet someone, an old middle school classmate. The very one who had bullied her. That classmate hadn't come to apologize, but because her own face had appeared in the leaked photo. Now she was tangled in the scandal. She asked Hang if she was still too scared to tell the truth. But Hang's silence wasn't guilt, it was protection. She didn't want the world to see how broken she had once been. Later that day, Unk was picking up equipment when So Hyan stopped him. "Are you really okay with letting Hang clean the auditorium by herself?" That simple question froze him. At the auditorium, Hang arrived and found two girls waiting. They greeted her, then brought up the scandal from the day before. But Hang didn't flinch. She stood her ground, unreadable. Unk had just arrived. He watched her walk away, calm and strong. But as soon as she turned the corner, out of sight, she collapsed against the wall and sobbed. Unk didn't approach. He knew she didn't want anyone to see her like this. That night, he called her, not for anything specific, just to be present. But even then, he couldn't find the words. Trying to ease the heavy air, Unk invited her to watch a movie. Hang accepted. They met in the broadcasting room screening area and started the film. As the story unfolded, Hang commented on the female lead, saying that if she had never revealed her secret, maybe she wouldn't have ended up so miserable. Her words hit close to home for Unk, reflecting Hang's own situation. They didn't say more, simply continued watching until both drifted off to sleep. The next morning, sunlight poured into the room. Hang woke to find Unk fast asleep, leaning against the railing. She watched him quietly for a long while, then noticed the sunlight was shining too brightly across his face. Gently, she reached out to shield the light with her hand. Just then, Unk stirred, instinctively catching her hand. Their eyes met, holding for a moment, until Hang, flustered, quickly pulled away. The following day, during a broadcasting club meeting, Unk accidentally revealed his injured leg. Their classmates noticed immediately and began speculating about why the two had spent the weekend together. After the meeting, So Hyan, unwilling to believe the rumors, stopped Hang and asked her directly what had really happened. She also pressed her about whether their previous argument was connected to all this. But Hang stayed silent. Later, while organizing documents, So Hyan received an email from a friend. Curious, she opened the attached video and was stunned to see Jane, a broadcasting club member, deliberately throwing Hang's USB drive onto the ground. So Hyan remembered how, on the day of the festival, Hang had been scolded by Unk for losing the drive. She also recalled how Jane had secretly checked the security footage earlier. Just as So Hyan was piecing it all together, Jane walked in. So Hyan was about to confront her when Hang entered too, laughing and chatting with Jane as if nothing at all was wrong. So Hyan could hardly believe how two-faced Jane truly was. A few days later, the school arranged an outdoor recording activity. So Hyan noticed Ja taking a group photo with classmates and quickly offered to take the picture for them. While adjusting the camera, she deliberately pressed the wrong button, making Jane impatiently give her the phone's password to unlock it. When Jane stepped away for just a moment, So Hyan seized the chance to slip away with the phone. Hiding in a quiet corner, she used the password to open Jane's files. The moment she opened the gallery, her heart dropped. There were endless photos of Hang being bullied, including the exact images leaked during the festival. Now it was undeniable, Jane was both the anonymous whistleblower who had submitted the story to the radio club and the one who had exposed Hang on the night of the celebration. Realizing her phone was missing, Jane searched frantically. When she finally found it, she was horrified to see every incriminating photo deleted. At that instant, her phone buzzed with a message from So Hyan, asking her to meet. When she arrived at the location, she discovered the person who had taken her phone was none other than So Hyan. Furious, Jane demanded to know why So Hyan was interfering. Without hesitation, So Hyan revealed everything she knew about Ja's actions. Seeing no way to hide anymore, Jan confessed. She explained that back in middle school, she and Hang had been classmates for a full year, but Hang had always ignored her. That indifference made her furious, pushing her to seek revenge. Yet she also clarified that Hang had never been a bully, she was the victim. Jane had personally witnessed Hang being tormented and had taken pictures of it all. Watching Hang suffer had left a deep mark on her, which was why she kept recording. Even now, though falsely accused of being a bully herself, Hang refused to admit the truth. Hearing this, So Hyan finally understood why Hong had always stayed distant from her. It was because Hang never wanted anyone, especially a close friend, to see her so fragile. So Hyan remembered seeing nasty messages on Hang's phone in the past, but she had never realized what Hang was actually enduring. Now that the truth was clear, guilt and sorrow washed over her. The next day, when she met Hang, she pretended nothing had happened. She wanted to tell her everything, but held back, knowing Hang's pride wouldn't allow her to handle such an exposure. In the end, So Hyan and Jane struck a deal to keep the truth hidden, with So Hyan warning Jane never to hurt Hang again. Later, Hang's face darkened at something she saw, and she quickly left. Before she got far, Un called out to her, stopping her briefly. Soon after, So Hyan found that Jane had posted something new online, which enraged her. She tried calling Jane over and over, but her calls went unanswered. Meanwhile, Hang confronted Jane face to face, directly accusing her. It turned out Hang had already suspected Jane for quite some time, piecing things together bit by bit. But instead of backing down, Jane sneered, mocking how pitiful she had once looked. To make things worse, she intentionally mentioned that So Hyan had also known the truth. At that moment, So Hyan appeared. When Hang saw her, she instantly demanded to know why she was there. So Hyan quickly explained that she had only just learned the full truth and was genuinely worried about her. But Hang, her pride already badly wounded, refused to hear it. She turned and walked away. So Hyan ran after her, shouting that after discovering the truth, she had been drowning in guilt and had spent the whole night in misery. But in the end, she chose to act like she didn't know, because she believed Hang wouldn't want anyone acknowledging it. Hang, however, only told her to keep pretending she knew nothing and that she didn't need her sympathy. Those words cut So Hyan deeply. The next morning, she went to Jane's classroom only to discover Jane wasn't there. She texted her, asking where she was, and got a reply saying she was in the broadcasting club, about to reveal something. The moment Hang read the message, she rushed to the broadcasting room. Hang thought So Hyan had told Un. So when she entered the room, she lashed out at him angrily. But Jean pretended to be pitiful, trying to make Unk misunderstand Hang. Seeing things spiraling, Un finally stepped in, clarifying that he and Jane had only been discussing work. He then reprimanded Hang for always being absent during the weekend before telling Jane to leave. After that, Un questioned Hang about why she had been avoiding everyone. Hang was unwilling to respond. Then she hurriedly left and caught up with Ja, pulling her into an empty classroom. There she demanded to know what Jane was really trying to do. Jean finally confessed her true emotions. She had started everything because Hang had ignored her first. Back in school, she had once gone up to Hang to greet her, but Hang had coldly brushed her off in front of their classmates, which resulted in Jean being ridiculed and isolated. From that moment onward, Jean considered Hang a hypocrite. Now she wanted Hang to know what it felt like to be abandoned. She ordered Hang to quit the broadcasting club and cut herself off from her friends, making her feel the sting of isolation. As if that were not already enough, Jan even threatened her, saying she had a video on her phone. If Hang refused to obey, she would make the video public. Meanwhile, her friends grew worried because they couldn't contact her. So Hyan went to Unk and told him that Hang had disappeared. But Unk stayed calm, explaining that he was only waiting for Hang to come to him and reveal the truth on her own. So Hyan, noticing the sadness in Unk's face, comforted him, saying that Hang would eventually tell him everything. At that same moment, Hang was hiding nearby, staring at the messages of concern her friends were sending in the group chat. She longed desperately to reply. Yet because of Jane's threats, she felt forced to silently leave the broadcasting club and push her friends away. Elsewhere, the broadcasting club's regular meeting started. Un glanced at Hang's empty seat, feeling an uneasy heaviness. Jean, acting casual, asked about Hang's assignments, but Un simply replied that he had given Hang another task and had no plans to make her quit. That response clearly upset Jane. Right then, a classmate suddenly realized that Hang had exited the broadcasting club's group chat. Almost at the same time, Unk received a direct message from Hang. The second he read the content, he instantly stood up and rushed out to find her. On his way, Jane stopped him and revealed that Hang had only joined the broadcasting club to discover who had been sending in certain stories. Then Jane confessed that she was the one who had written both of those stories. She insisted that she had been bullied by Hang in the past and had been living under its shadow ever since. Watching Hang now live as if nothing had ever happened made her furious, and that was why she wrote those stories, to vent her resentment. Hearing Jane's words, Un couldn't help but recall the past. Hang had asked about the broadcasting club's account more than once, which made Jane begin to suspect her. Meanwhile, Hang went back to her classroom to pack up her things and leave her home. Just as she was about to go, So Hyan came up with concern and offered her a piece of bread. But Hang, unwilling to accept the kindness, pulled away in frustration. So Hyan finally asked if the rumors about her were true. Without hesitation, Hang admitted that she was indeed the bully. Without saying anything else, she turned her back and left the classroom. That night, Hang received a message from Unk saying that he was waiting for her downstairs. Without hesitation, Hang ran down to meet him. When they finally stood face to face, Unk told Hang that he had been waiting all this time for her to tell him the truth. He also admitted that he feared the online rumors might actually be true. Hearing this, Hang felt a painful sting of betrayal. Unk didn't believe her either. She coldly told Unk to stop waiting and added that being labeled the bully was easier than being the victim. Disappointed, Unk said he regretted ever falling in love with Hang and agreed to let her quit the broadcasting club. As Un walked away, Hang stared at his fading figure, unable to stop her tears. This girl was completely overwhelmed by sadness. The next morning, Hang told her mother that she wanted to leave school. Her mother had already heard some rumors about her from colleagues at work. Instead of scolding her, she encouraged Hang to face her difficulties head-on instead of running away, urging her to stay strong. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl pretended to be pitiful in front of classmates, winning their sympathy and convincing them that Hang had once bullied her. Unk, who had just argued with Hang, looked heartbroken. A friend tried to console him, saying that in love, no one should always be the one giving in and that nothing hurts more than not being able to see the person you love. At that moment, Unk received a message from his mother, asking him to meet. Unk's parents had separated when he was young, and ever since, he had been living with his father. His mother had promised that she would return often, but she always failed to appear, leaving him deeply let down. Although at first he wanted to refuse, he eventually agreed to meet his mother again after all those years apart. Unk reached the meeting place and finally saw his mother once more. They shared a meal together. Afterward, Unk politely said farewell, believing that was the end. But as he stepped outside, his mother hurried after him, calling out his name. She was terrified of losing this chance, not knowing when they might meet again. She confessed that she regretted not embracing Unk a little longer before leaving years ago and admitted that she had come back many times but lacked the courage to face him. His mother felt guilt not only for breaking her promises to Unk, but also for treating her son the same way she once treated a lover, always leaving without a word. At that moment, Unk recalled something Hang had once said to him. Back then he hadn't understood it, but now he finally realized the pain Hang had been hiding and the fear that had kept her from telling the truth. The next day, Hang heard Unk's voice broadcast across the school. It turned out that Unk finally understood the meaning behind Hang's words, the suffering of holding back the truth. Hang, filled with emotion, couldn't stop her tears. As the college entrance exam drew near, Hang still had not returned to school, stirring rumors that she was planning to drop out. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl was still spreading gossip about Hang bullying her. But suddenly, So Hyan appeared, leaving the manipulative girl speechless and humiliated. Elsewhere, Un was in the broadcasting room and announced that there would be a live broadcast that very day. The students were curious about who the host would be, but Un calmly answered, "Don't worry, the host will be here soon." And right then, Hang appeared. "If you were bullied at school, would you have the courage to speak out in front of everyone?" Hang stood inside the school's broadcasting club. She was ready to reveal the truth about bullying on campus. It turned out that the night before, she had gone to Un and told him directly that she was not the bully, but the victim. Hearing this, Unk's heart broke and he held her tightly in his arms. Hang then explained everything that had taken place. Unk told her to leave the rest to him. Unk then prepared a school-wide live broadcast to reveal the truth. When So Hyan turned on the classroom screen, everyone, especially the manipulative girl, was stunned. Hang appeared on the screen and admitted that she had been a victim of bullying. 2 years earlier, on her birthday, she had been invited by friends to celebrate at a karaoke bar, only to be bullied there. She had never dared to speak out because she feared others would see her differently. Later, when she was falsely accused of being the bully, she didn't even try to defend herself, because to her, being a victim was more shameful than being an aggressor. But now she finally understood that the people who cared for her only wanted the truth. So she resolved to stop running and speak out, not only for herself but also for the ones who had always cared for her. At the same time, So Hyan confronted the manipulative girl and told her to stop, but she tried to make excuses. Then So Hyan played a video that showed the manipulative girl bullying Hang. When she saw the recording, the manipulative girl's confidence collapsed. So Hyan passed the video around to the other classmates. And as they all watched, the manipulative girl grew nervous under their judgmental stares. She finally admitted everything, but lashed out, saying, "Weren't all of you gossiping behind Hang's back, too?" This angered the classmates who had just learned the truth. Some even rushed forward, ready to teach the manipulative girl a lesson. Hang meanwhile declared that although she had once been terrified of how others would see her, she no longer wanted to run away, because now she had people who truly loved her standing by her side. A rare smile appeared on her face as she walked out of the broadcasting room. And Un pulled her into a warm embrace. Just then, Jan also arrived at the broadcasting club and wrapped Hang in a huge hug. Everyone was overjoyed that Hang had finally spoken her truth. Meanwhile, the manipulative girl was now seen by her classmates as nothing but a deceiver. And Un told her to pack up and leave the broadcasting club. That weekend, Hang and Un had their very first official date. They shared a meal, went shopping, and even took photos together. That night, the usually cold and distant Hang took the initiative to confess her feelings to Unk. After everything they had endured, they finally began their beautiful love story. On the way home, So Hyan came to meet Hang, bringing along her favorite food. Just like in the old days, the two of them sat together in their familiar spot, eating and chatting, and they once again became best friends.